What is the biggest misconception that people have?
I think the biggest misconception that I have encountered is the role of women in Orthodox Judaism. That's one of the biggest misconceptions that I have encountered. That's not part of the question.
There was no and, but we could add an and. They want an and.
They want to know what I
The
answered?
people want an and. Yes, they want an answer.
How much time do you have?
How much time do we have?
No, that's a very big misconception. And I think the biggest answer to that question is asking people to pay attention to how we live. And then you will really see how esteemed and appreciated and central the Jewish woman is to an Orthodox Jewish home and an Orthodox Jewish community. And I think that the Shluchim's wives demonstrate that every day of the year as they take equal part and bear the responsibilities equally with their husbands, and actually in some cases even more, to create a community wherever they may be. It's definitely a team effort, and there's no sense. All you have to do is ask a Chabad Orthodox woman how they feel about their role in the community, and they'll tell it to you, I think. I'm almost sure.
Excellent answer. Okay, Rabbi Jacobson, perhaps?
I don't know the greatest, but I think a great misconception people have is that they are lonely in their pain and vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. And have you been able to answer them?
Not a question, it's a misconception. Mm-hmm. People feel...
Have you been able to help them with this misconception?
I try to help, but I think the issue is that, people, if you go around the room, very often people, if you even go around this room, any room, everyone struggles with something, and often they struggle alone with it. And people think that this is mine and nobody can understand, nobody can relate. In Yiddish, there's an expression, Ich bin der einzige Meshuggene. I'm the only madman. Reb Nachman of Breslov has a story where he says that there was once a king, and his advisor said, we're approaching a year of famine. There will not be any grain available. There will be a stock of grain, but that grain has a chemical, and if you eat it, you become insane. But nobody knows it. So if we don't give them the grain, they'll starve to death. If we give them the grain, the whole country will become mad. But for you and I have separate grain. The king said, doesn't make sense. I'm going to be a king over madmen and I'm going to be normal. It won't be. Says the king said, we'll also eat from the grain. But before we eat, we'll put a sign on our forehead, I am mad. So that when you see me and I see you, we'll remember the truth. So if we can walk around with that sign on some level, it would be helpful for a lot of people.
Okay. And Rabbi Schochet, thank you. Okay.
The question obviously wasn't specific to Jewish people. You asked what is the biggest
right.
misconception that people have, and therefore I would argue maybe that the biggest misconception that people have is indeed Jews. For many people, there is the assumption that we're trying to dominate the world. After all, we talk about Mashiach, we talk about the universal laws, etc. And if not that, then it's about the chosen people complex, etc., etc. And they just have no clue. There's so much ignorance as to what the essence or what the purpose of the Jew is all about. I mean, we are a minority of a minority. And yet, nevertheless, we are the focus of all the peoples all around the world all of the time throughout the course of history. And there is that misconception. And the reality is, of course, that Judaism differs fundamentally from all other faiths who all maintain that the only way on to God is but through them. And Judaism maintains, no, that you have access to God and you have purpose by virtue of who you yourself are. Judaism, therefore, is the only faith that does not actively proselytize. It doesn't proselytize at all. Every other faith does actively seek to do so. We maintain that you have purpose by virtue of the way that God created you and the way that God made you, and that ultimately each one seeking out their own purpose of why I am here, which is not really for myself, but to contribute to the bigger picture of society, is what will make the difference in bringing light into this world and ultimately Mashiach.